All right, hello and welcome to Tuesday's Topics. We haven't done one in a while and we couldn't have come back with a stronger topic and a stronger guest. We're talking about what does true athletic development look like? And joining me today, Tom Farrey. He's the Executive Director of the Sports and Society Program at the Aspen Institute and the founder of Project Play, which is the program's signature initiative and something I'm always deriving information for and quoting and borrowing stuff from. So thank you so much, Tom. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you so much for having me.
So today we're talking about what does true athletic development look like? And this idea, I was just telling you off camera before we started, I came across an article you wrote, I think it was in April, for the New York Times, and it just blew me away. It was, I've been at this for a while now, and it was by far the best article sort of summarizing all of our issues and solutions and seeing how what change could be made to actually help. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about how did you even end up, and we'll get to that article in depth, but how did you decide to go to Norway and to study their sports system?
Well, look, I've been on this path of youth sports and our dysfunctional at best and broken at worst sports system for 15 years. Wrote the book in 2008, Game On, which laid out the problems, started Project Play in 2013, listened to a lot of people, developed a framework, our Sport for All, Play for Life playbook to get every kid in the game, framework of 8 strategies for the 8 sectors that touch the lives of kids. So I've been looking for solutions for a long time. And when I was covering the Olympics last year for NBC Sports, Norway killed it. They won more medals than any nation in the history of the Winter Olympics, 39. We, the U.S., nation of 330 million people, finished 4th. I'm like, wow, how did a nation of 5 million people do this? So I started asking questions. I talked to the top sport officials at Norway who happened to be in Korea, talked to journalists, began peeling back the layers. I'm a trained journalist, as you know. And so inevitably I just became fascinated with their model, so much of it. And so then I started writing about it a little bit, but I really want to get on the ground and test these ideas from people I've been hearing about in person and over the phone. So flew to Oslo in the spring, and what do you know? It's real. This is a nation where 93% of kids grow up playing sports. It's one of the most physically active nations in the world. One of the healthiest nations in the world. One of the happiest nations in the world. It's one that has strong democratic principles and communities where people talk with each other and trust each other, and they understand the role of sport in building the kind of nation that they want to have. And I said, holy cow, they basically put in Project Play 25 years ago and backed it by policy and backed it by partnerships and stuck with it. And now they have a sports system that is, I think, the most effective sports system in the world, in not just in creating elite athletes, but also producing positive public health outcomes.
And when you're talking about is the children's rights in sports, right? And this is a document, a credo, what do you call it, that they implemented back in, when was it, in the 87, I think I read. Mm-hmm. And basically, as you pointed out, actually live by it. So tell us, what is their children's rights in sports?
It is a simple 8-page document, a statement as to what kind of experience every child in that country deserves to have through sports. One that is accessible, one where their voice is included, one where free play is, make sure we carve out room for it. It aligns with the research around athletic development, as well as, more importantly, child development. And the whole goal is to get, every kid in that country, at least through age 12 or 13, active through sports, develop physical literacy, love of game, social, emotional skills, the kind of soft skills that come with playing with classmates and resolving problems and otherwise. And they're just not over eager to try and sort the weak from the strong. They understand that kids need to grow into their bodies and their minds and their interests. So it's not just sort of an aspirational statement, but it's also a statement, this children's rights and sport document, as to what you should not do. And we expect you not to do, which is no national championships before the age of 14, no regional championships before the age of 11. If any kid gets a trophy, every kid gets a trophy. And I know that's a huge conversation, right? But it's a system that is, they understand, look, these are kids. We need to give them an experience that meets their needs. And it's just so admirable.
And their motto is joy of sports for all, which, their motto to then this Bill of Rights, or their, what do we just say, the children's rights in sports. And I think the thing that makes it so amazing is it's working, right? I mean, they have, what is it, a 90%, I was reading in your article, 93% of their children grow up playing sports. Their costs are low, as you said, and travel teams aren't formed until the teenage years. And it all goes back to that document. And I want to talk to you a little bit. You interviewed someone while you were there, and I pulled out a few quotes that were pretty powerful as far as I was concerned. One of the things they said, they decide for themselves how much they would like to train, he said, and that's a key part of it. He said their priority is child becoming self-reflective about their bodies and minds. And are these, now let me ask this, so if someone from Norway came here and interviewed you, you would say this is how we want it to be too, but you didn't just talk to these people, you actually went out, talked to kids and parents. Like, they actually buy into this and believe in this system?
Yeah, absolutely. And those quotes that you just offered up there, those are from the top Olympic official in the country. Okay, the person who is held responsible to whether they are developing elite athletes and putting people on the podium. He, like everyone else I spoke to over there, understands and appreciates what needs to happen at 12 and under, the importance of building the base. So as kids move into the teenage years, they can figure out who the potential elite athletes are if they want to pursue that path. So yeah, I think there's great buy-in. I found almost universal buy-in here, because this wasn't some top-down document that came from some official in some ministry somewhere. Yes, the Ministry of Culture supports it. Yes, the Confederation of Sport is behind it. The Olympic Committee is behind it. But this is a document that is voted on by each of the national governing bodies of sport, as well as a representative from each of the 19 or so states or counties that exist within Norway. So it is a democratically created document. Yes, there's leadership in there. It wasn't crowdsourced, but people get it. They had a voice in it, and so they buy into it. And therefore, when people try to create competition scenarios that live outside of it, they can be held accountable by their sport governing body, which maybe won't let them use the publicly available spaces, the field space and otherwise, or maybe they will, not give you a grant because there's money coming from government to help build facilities, matching grants, that type of thing. So yeah, it's basically, I didn't find anybody arguing with it over there.
Well, I mean, I think it's good to note too, that, as you point out, that they're in school, they don't get grades until they're 13 too. So it's something that goes across sport to kind of all of the way they handle children. But that being said, they're not robots. And as you wrote about in your article, there's the beach volleyball player, for example, I can't think of his name right now, who was he wanted more competition. It happens that there's kids that want this, but now looking back, or families and kids, he says it's made him one of the things he's now famous for, a well-rounded athlete, right? I mean, there are outliers. There can't be just everybody wants to follow perfectly, right? Did you come across a few more people like him?
Yeah, I mean, he was a fascinating case. Here you have a kid who is the son of a mother and a father who played on the national team. Mm-hmm. Okay, they know what to do with volleyball. He's got an older brother who's pretty good. He's an early bloomer. He's got talent that is, much better than most 8 or 10-year-olds out there. But there are no 8 and 10-year-old national championships for a kid like that to test himself against. And that is a compromise. But it's a compromise that, while difficult for him to accept at that age, because every competitor wants to test themselves, he also understands the big picture and how it is, this type of rule is good for the society. There is that sense that, we're all in this together,
Right.
that it's not just about me clawing my way ahead of everyone else in my society, that there's room for me to pursue excellence, but everyone else to be lifted as well. And I thought that was a really reasonable, point of view. And ultimately, it didn't stop him. He's the best beach volleyball player. He's in the 2 Norwegians are the best beach volleyball players in the world. So he just had to wait a little bit longer to, peak.
Right. Patience. And and that's something I wanted to say first off. And anybody who's listening out there, please write in comments or questions you might have for Tom. I see a few people have given us some thumbs up. Gerald, Todd, Mark, Dina, you guys keep watching. Ask questions if you want. We would love to have them. But to rewind a little bit, for those who aren't as involved as you and I might be, the problem is, and you were just talking about peaking, and I had David Epstein on not too long ago, who was talking about we are creating amazing 13, 14, 15-year-old athletes, and then that's it. They peak. And from there, they're mentally breaking down, physically breaking down. I think, I'm sure you must have read that amazing article by Baxter Holmes in ESPN about the NBA players breaking down. I mean, there is a huge need and a huge issue for us to study these things and for people like yourself to write about it and to really find a solution. And actually your main campaign right now, which is #Don'tRetireKid. I hope everyone has seen that, by the way. I put it on our site, but it's a really, really special and important way and word and message. And you did it in such a creative way by having kids at their press conference announcing their retirements. It's a great campaign from Project Play. But the problem is real, and the financial burden. I mean, I just wanted to back up and talk about that for anyone who may not be reading as much as we are about the issues happening right now. But it's affecting everything. It's affecting the health of our kids, emotional, physical, families not getting in financial trouble for this. I mean, it's a big deal. So I hope people are listening and hearing all the information Tom's sharing about his trip to Norway and what he learned there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wanted to rewind and talk about the problem a little bit. So what about Norway? Like, how are we similar or different? What can we take from them? And a lot of people are probably saying, well, they're this tiny little country and we could never do that. Like, how can you see ways that we can cross over with what they've done?
Well, there are definitely differences, right? I mean, it is they have, for one thing, they don't, college is free there. Okay, that's one critical,
biggie, right?
College is free. So no one is chasing the college athletic scholarship in Norway.
Right.
The schools are generally good. The lower level schools are pretty good. You don't jump from one school. There's not this chase to get into the private, school or the prep school that's going to catapult you in society. So the incentives are the incentive structure is different over there.
Do they have sports in their colleges? Like, do they compete so they don't even only intramural level?
No, certainly not not like we do here in the U.S., where it's a major entertainment industry. The Florida Gators playing the Florida State Seminoles on a fall Saturday. No, they don't. I mean, universities and clubs provide sport opportunities, and that's the way that their society is organized. So that's a significant advantage. They also have more universal health care. So, people are healthier in general. Having said that, we have more in common than with them than we think we do. their sport clubs, their sports ecosystem is dominated by volunteers, just like ours. They love sports, just like we do. They, pride themselves on their democracy, just like we do, even though we obviously have some problems here and there. I'm not going to open up that can of worms.
Yes, please don't.
but they, it's just a sporty culture. They fund a fair chunk of their sports system through sports gambling revenues and gambling revenues. They actually take 2/3 of the revenues that goes into a government monopoly, and then they push it out to community clubs as well as the Olympic structure and otherwise to fund their sports system. Well, guess what? We are legalizing sports betting state by state in this country. So can we have this conversation around taking a defined set of proceeds from sports gambling to fund the bottom of our sports pyramid? I think we should. I think it's a terrific opportunity. And so, and this idea that, well, they've just got a lot of snow. Of course, they're going to do well in the Winter Olympics. Look, we have more snow in our country than they do. We've got more people on skis, more people on skates than they do, and they're still achieving it at a much greater rate than we are. Some people say, well, Norway is rich with oil. Well, so are we. There are a lot of excuses why we can't do what Norway has. One distinct advantage they do have is that because they are smaller, 5 million people, they can get all the right people around the table, and it's easier to create a level of consensus and therefore policy around it. So we are a nation, again, of 330 million people. But I do wonder, could this be done on a state-by-state basis? Minnesota is about the same size as Norway. Michigan, or at least southeastern Detroit, southeastern Michigan is about the same size as Norway. So could we at the state level or the regional level get all the right people around the table together, create our own children's rights in sport document, develop some funding around it, and then reward the best actors, those that abide best practices, and get their coaches trained and make sport accessible to all kids and not just the travel team kids. So I think this can be done. It might be in a different format than they do it in Norway. And regardless, there's just so much to be learned, picking pieces of their system and applying it here.
Yeah, and I mean, we are seeing a lot of, laws being passed by the states on concussion protocol. I mean, they're slow to move, and we're almost, I think, at all the states at this point. But is that a thing that they could take? I mean, I'm just going to make up something silly right now, but could we mandate no weekend sports or seasons have to change with sports? I mean, is that something that could even be possible, or we'll never have that kind of, I mean, they don't even have that, I'm guessing, but I do fantasize about this.
We could. The key is, what's the mechanism to do so, right? Is it the governor's office, working together with key stakeholders to agree upon a set of principles that we are now going to, ask anybody who receives state funding to abide by? I mean, the same way to Title IX. Title IX is simply a statement of, you cannot if you want our federal dollars, you cannot discriminate in the course of providing sport opportunities. You've got to think about what equity looks like.
Right.
So could it be done at the state level? Could it be done at the city level? These municipalities here, just like in Norway, have control over a lot of inventory where these teams play their games. Mm-hmm. And right now, if you are that club, if you are whatever, that program that wants to use this space, cities are not asking much. They're saying, do you have insurance? And that's about it. Could cities use the power of the permit to say, well, show us you have insurance, but also show us your coaches are trained, show us that you promote multi-sport play, show us that you are making room for kids from lower income homes, X percentage of your program goes to kids from free and reduced. There are ways to do this. This is a power that mayors and city managers and town recreation councils have not exercised to date, except in a few cases like in New York, where they said no no metal bats. There are select cases where or if you're going to do youth tackle football, you've got to have a trainer on site. I mean, there are these outlier cases, but the power of the permit is a tremendous opportunity to begin to reimagine youth sports in a better form on a city by city basis.
Is there anything people that might be listening to this or people at home can do to help that? I mean, can they write someone a letter, or what do you suggest? What can actually be like a call to action sort of thing for us?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I don't want to be self-promotional here, but I mean, we do have this on our website, projectplay.us. You can see the 8 strategies for the 8 sectors that touch the lives of children. One thing you do is just simply share those 8 strategies and create with your network and create a conversation around what do we want our community to be? What does an optimal sports and how well are we doing on each of these strategies? How well are we doing on training coaches? How well are we doing on asking kids what they want? How well are we doing in making sure that kids have room for free play? Pass that around, host a meeting at your local high school, invite in the Little League and the youth soccer board and the PE teacher and all the key stakeholders, and then start a community conversation. Because you as a parent or you as a single sport organization cannot create this environment alone in your community. You do need to get other people on the same page. So start with that as a resource. We're going to be releasing at the Project Play Summit a new tool called the Teamwork Toolkit, which will help local leaders do this.
I wrote about it. I think I interviewed you on a podcast. There's 2 club teams. One was hockey and one was soccer in Canada. And I just love this. They got together. They decided to make their sports seasons not cross over. They worked together with their athletes. I mean, they ran into some problems, when you get the parents that it wasn't enough hockey for their son, whatever. And they actually would go and intervene and get the 2 coaches, the soccer coach and the hockey coach together. I mean, that's probably a much smaller town in Canada. But I mean, if, like you're saying, if people can work together to get some of this done, it's going to take things like that where people want to see change and work together. And you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. It starts with just de-siloing the environment. And you can do it yourself. It could come from the mayor's office, but probably is going to have to start with you. If you feel strongly that our community could do sports better, just take charge, jump in there, invite people to a meeting.
And one thing I just want to, people ask me all the time too about this, and it's something I struggle with. You have kids, all my kids play a lot of sports. I love sports. I'm competitive with sports, but I want to have it be, a successful, happy, valuable journey and growth time for them. And how do you do it? And I think the one thing for me, and I'd like to hear yours, is you can always start with the question, is this decision good for my child? Because a lot of times that can drive the answer to everything. Should they do that extra training? Should we do this? Whatever it is it good for my kid? I think people a lot of times just lose sight of that one very simple question and maybe convince themselves differently when they're trying to answer that. But if you really, listen to your heart with that question, I think a lot of your own personal path as you go through this journey right now in these kind of tricky times can help guide. Do you have any sort of sentiment like that you like to offer up to people?
Yeah, it's a great question to ask yourself. The question is this good for my child? How does a parent know what's good for their child? So what I would say is it's an informed parent, so someone who understands what the key principles are in athletic development and child development will go a long way to helping them answer that question effectively.
You're right, because some people misguided would think doing some crazy stuff is good for their child. So it definitely needs a second tenet to it, that's for sure.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that's why we've got these 8 strategies for the 8 sectors that touch the lives of kids. And so if you kind of audit yourself along those ways, am I promoting multi-sport play? There's a whole we got to tell you these parent checklists on there. Questions that you can ask yourself, your child, and your local sport provider.
Right.
to make sport experience a great one for your kid.
And when I repost this, I'll put links to all that in the comment section so that people can have access to that too, because they're a great resource. And you guys are doing a phenomenal job. And I really appreciate you coming on today and talking about this, Tom. And hopefully we'll get you on for something else soon. And if anyone hasn't seen the hashtag Don't Retire Kid, look that up because it's pretty awesome. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Asia.